If ever the devil was born without a pair of horns, it was you.
Greetings from King Edward VII Hospital, where I am still recovering very slowly, hopefully, surely, although I have to tell you sometimes that's in doubt. There are times when I seriously doubt that there's anything sure about this, because the ordeal that I am being put through is beyond belief. But the less said about it, the better. Today has not been my greatest day. I've had absolutely no strength to do all the things that I have needed to do and have then had to force myself to do, plucking strength from an empty reservoir. But I suppose that's life, and one may as well just get on with it and try to make the best of a bad deal. Well, today we have a little bit of bests of bad deals to speak about. So without further ado, I'm going to plunge in, because I'm also going to try to keep this reasonably light and reasonably sweet, so that, because really I have very few resources to call upon at this time, if the truth be known. So I will plunge in with what Hawley Robinson says. The entire Anglo-Virginia situation disturbs Americans too. We are asking the same questions as you are. That is very reassuring to know, because the whole thing stinks to high heaven that, notwithstanding the fact that Epstein was an American, notwithstanding the fact that President Clinton was such a great friend of his that he even had a portrait of Clinton in Monica Lewinsky's dress. Now that really tells you a lot about a sense of humour and shared purpose. We all know it broke up Bill Gates's marriage, and yet the only people who are suffering any consequences are the Brits. So I'm delighted to hear that this is the situation in America. And let us hope it evolves into something rather more American, because this is not an English tragedy. This is an American tragedy that is being made into an English drama and tragedy. Julie Emerson says, "Hello, Lady C. I see Rachel is looking to sue William if he takes their titles. Not sure I am correct, but are they not gifted to Henry? If so, how will she achieve it?" Yes, there is a rumour going around, and I'm pretty damn sure that Meghan herself will have fed that rumour. There is a precedent, not acted upon, but there is a precedent. When the Duke of Windsor received word that the Duchess of Windsor would not be accorded the style and dignity of Royal Highness, he consulted legal experts in the United Kingdom about suing the Crown so that his wife would receive what every other wife in this country receives, namely equal status. For various reasons, it never happened. The Second World War came about. Things went on beyond, and he never sued. But he could have sued, because in this country, titles are governed by the law. Could Rachel sue? Well, she couldn't sue, but she could encourage Harry to sue. Sorry, I'm in a lot of pain. She could encourage Harry to sue. And that could create a very interesting legal dilemma and melee. I can see what some of the grounds might be, and what some of the grounds would be, and what some of the grounds ought to be. I can also see many reasons why none of this should happen. But Meg's a baby. Is She-Ra, rebel princess. She's fighting for what she wants to fight for. And could she sue William in the British courts? The answer is yes, but the answer is yes with qualifications. The monarch is the fount of all honours. If the monarch wishes to turn off the tap that feeds the fountain, being the fount of all honours, it's well within his rights to do so. But this would tie up the nation in years of litigation. This would involve Meghan in years of grandstanding, where she would be playing the victim to the full extent of her victimhood capabilities in the most wonderful way. And she would be loving every minute of it. I think she would find that if she crossed swords with William, he is not going to dullon his rapier. I think she might find that she'd met her match. And depending on what he does and how he does it, she would basically have no comeback. And the courts, for all their faffing about and waffling about, would have no jurisdiction to actually make certain rulings. The Windsor ruling would have been a peculiarity, because the style and title and rank of Royal Highness was given particularly to King Edward VIII when he became Duke of Windsor, for himself and himself alone. So there was a grey area there, in that the argument could have been run, and might well have been run successfully, that by depriving her of the right to Royal Highness, they were depriving her of the inalienable rights of all other women, especially as how one of the reasons why the abdication had been forced through was the fact that they being the British establishment, was able to say that in Britain we don't have morganatic marriages. And for that reason, Wallis, as the morganatic wife of Edward VIII, had been rejected out of hand. Otherwise, she would have become Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Lancaster. So that's one situation. This would be another one. What's Meghan going to object to? The fact that the title was taken away because they're treacherous and that they betrayed the royal family and they betrayed the interests of the country and the Commonwealth. I'm afraid treachery and traitordom are not very good defences in the law. Let's put it like that. Louise Bear says, Blake Lively is trying to take Popcorn Planet down. Andy Signore is fighting her in court. So I've heard, I like Andy. We've interviewed each other and I like him. Blake Lively, I've got news for you, is, according to my Hollywood bongo drums, a busted flush. She is beyond irredeemable. She and Ryan Reynolds are in huge trouble in Hollywood. They are yesterday's men. Nobody wants to have anything to do with them. Nobody's going to have anything to do with them. You wait for it. You wait and see what happens. They are busted flushes. And they have mounted a campaign of vilification that was an abuse of the court process. And they thought they could get away with it because they were rich enough, powerful enough, and vigorous enough in their pursuit of injustice that they would get away with it, and they've not got away with it. And I doubt very much that Andy Signore has very much to worry about. I hope not, because he's a good guy. I like him enormously. Dave Whitmore says, Howard Hughes' plane was the Spruce Goose, wasn't it? Dave Whitmore, you are one of many people who pointed out to me that my lacuna definitely could be filled very easily with your superior knowledge. Thank you very much. Yes, the wooden monstrosity was called the Spruce Goose, and it was Howard Hughes's contribution to the war effort. I think it flew for about 3 seconds. Very funny, wasn't it, really? Madame Robinson says, I watched an episode of Miss Marple last night. Geraldine McEwen is my favourite Miss Marple. I am often struck by just how badly Meghan Markle messed up her entire life. Joanna Lumley was also in it. Meghan could have had such a great acting career in Britain. So many great actors of a certain age who had continuing careers and remained popular. That doesn't happen in Hollywood. You're absolutely right. We have a very well-established film industry in this country and very well-established television industry in this country, and they're now pretty much interchangeable. Had Meghan remained a member of the royal family, had she performed as she promised she would and as she was expected to do, she would have remained as supremely popular as she was. That would have meant that she would have been much in demand for character roles in things like Miss Marple. So those of you who don't know, Miss Marple is one of Agatha Christie's detectives, and Miss Marple is very successful here. It's had several different actresses have played Miss Marple in various television series and continue to do so. And then, of course, you've had Poirot. But Meghan Markle could have had so many choice bits, and she'd have got paid good money for them. She wouldn't have got paid the megabucks that her vanity required that she achieve, but she would have got a respectable income that, in tandem with the feedback from the state and their expenses, etc., because she was on a clothing allowance of over $2 million, more than every single queen, duchess, and princess in Europe collectively were on. So she was in an extremely privileged position. And what did she do with it? She blew it. She completely blew it. Because she's known the price of everything, the value of nothing. And she has behaved like the cheap and vulgar hustler that she is and clearly always was. The only thing is, when she was on the way up, she was careful to conceal how the dreadful underbelly of her greed and of her rampant self-importance and of her folie de grandeur. It's only once she became established as Harry's fiancée, then as Harry's wife, that the whole apple cart crumbled, because she lost all restraint. She was like a glutton who finally removes all pretense and just grabs the food and shoves it in his or her mouth. That's what she was doing figuratively. And it turned people off. But had she done things differently, she would have had a flourishing acting career. The only difficulty is she's always been an appalling actress. She's always overacted. She's never known that the secret to being a good actress isn't to act, it is to be. The Queen used to make that point, that being a good royal wasn't about acting the role, it was about being the role. Big distinction. So, Fee Oz says, that whole Dodgers thing was a missed opportunity for the bumbling duo, another missed opportunity. And I think it's well worth that we examine these missed opportunities. Why didn't someone realize what a different thing it would have been if they had capitalized on the British Harry for Toronto and Megsy for the LA Dodgers, a couple's rivalry? Anyone who has seen a couple at a party or in the stands when the formerly named Washington Redskins played the Dallas Cowboys, and one is a hardcore Cowboy fan and the other Washington fan, knows how a couple can try to outshare the other It is serious. Get Harry kitted out in a blue jay shirt and hat, Meghan Markle in Dodger shirt and hat, and make it a super fun rivalry. That would have been the story, and even though they are disliked, they'd have received attention in a good, fun way by both sides of the fans in the stadium. It would have been fun. But no, it became a well-deserved idiotic negative for Harry, the son of the head of the Commonwealth, which, truth be told, was likely very much on purpose, sadly. We see how she rarely misses a chance not to make him look bad. That's a good point. I think this shows how dumb they are when nobody is telling them what to do. Even when people are telling them what to do, they're dumber than anything you could believe. Meghan's vanity would not allow for Harry to be in an opposing costume, because Harry is her other half. Harry is her subservient half. Harry has to obey and do what she wants him to do. And Harry has to do it. But you're absolutely right. Talk about a golden opportunity missed. Will they learn their lesson? Well, will pigs fly? Let's put it that way. Pamela Schultz says, Lady C, you have reduced me almost to tears. Yes, this is the attitude of so many state hospitals worldwide. It is beyond terrible. You have been so very, very brave. Necessity, my dear, is the mother of many an invention. I applaud these 3 genuine doctors, your GP and 2 surgeons. That's Dr. Annie Coxon, Mr. Paul Kaplan, who did the surgery, and Mr. Philip Stott, who would have done the surgery but didn't, and encouraged me to go with Mr. Kaplan, who he also knows. I mention their names again because they deserve to have their praises sung from the highest mountain. I applaud these 3 genuine doctors who actually honor their Hippocratic oaths and their humanity rather than a very degenerate, politicized system masquerading as a health system. As for the screening room, frankly, they owe you for mental suffering as well as physical damages. Never mind disruption to and loss of income. You are at the center of far more than this broadcast, and everything has been put out of joint. Well, this I do because this helps me to function and to remain sort of with my head above the water. Otherwise, I would be possibly sinking in a morass of all sorts of terrible things. But the Soho Hotel has not been in touch yet. They have Kit Kemp said she was going to be in touch. She totally ignored it. I don't know what advantage she thinks she gets as a result of behaving badly, unless, of course, she took the view that since it had already made the newspapers, which of course it was inevitable it was going to, because this was a public screening with the press and the paparazzi there. So it was inevitable that it was going to make the news. And I suppose maybe she and her advisors have thought, well, we can't keep it out of the news. So since we can't keep it out of the news, let's try to starve the whole situation of any oxygen, and maybe it will just disappear into the ether, along with their good judgment. But that's their pigeon. They've made their choices so far. That they can still make others. I'm not stopping them from making others. And as I've said time and again, it would be nice if this could be resolved civilly and amicably, but I don't know how they think it's going to be able to be resolved civilly and amicably when the owner's wife rings up my friend and says she wants my number so she can phone me, and then doesn't bother to do it. Now, as for the very degenerate politicized system masquerading as a health system, this is absolutely right. The National Health Service is an open scandal. It employs an awful lot of people who do sometimes a very good job and other times an appalling job. It is administered by administrators who care nothing about the Hippocratic Oath or the fact that human lives and human suffering are involved. They have their protocols and their systems, and they are basically intent upon looking at the baseline, which is how much money can they save the NHS so that the NHS can continue to employ people who do the minimal amount of work. They say that rooms are filled when half the time half of them aren't. It's all a massive con. It is done so that the NHS is as a huge organization can continue to flourish under the guise of being a lifesaver, when in fact one of its guiding lights now is to snuff out lives as and when it is feasible and commercially desirable for them to do so. This is a shocking state of affairs. And when you stop to think that evidently every single penny raised in income tax in this country goes to support the National Health Service, you realize what an absolute con the whole thing is. Is there going to be a solution? It's a leviathan, it's a behemoth, it's too big to fail, so it will continue to succeed as the failure it is. It is really, to a large extent, a liquidator. It chooses who is going to be treated and survive and who is going to be ignored and will die. That's the reality of what it is and what it's about and what it does. This is truly a frightening situation for anybody to be in. And after you have spent your whole life in this country working, contributing, you're deemed not worth the money to save. I have been receiving very interesting reports of the total lack of scruple and decency and ethical morality in the National Health Service and the way it's run from very interesting sources since my accident, including from members of the National Health Service themselves who are appalled at what is going on. This is yet another example of why states' power should be limited. States are not the citizen's natural friend. States are the citizen's natural enemy. It's showing up in many ways, shapes, and forms, not only in terms of the health service and how medical treatment is apportioned in a wholly irrational and unhippocratic way, but it also shows up in the fact that we have a socialist government who believe that socialism is the best system of government and that the way to get money is to run rich people out of the country and have only poor people in the country. Really clever. Helen Flynn says, "Good to see you recovering, Lady Colin. I respectfully suggest that you are incorrect to say that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is now a lord, as his father was a duke. It is my understanding that all his titles were removed, and he is now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Titles in the royal family are not the same as titles in the peerage. Titles in the royal family and titles in the peerage may have different styles, but the rules are the same. A peerage, whether it's a royal peerage or a non-royal peerage, is still a peerage, and it's subject to certain rules. Normally, the son of a royal duke is a prince, but the son of a non-royal dukedom is a lord. You cannot have a Mr. I'm not wrong. I have checked this out with the experts. I checked it out with people who are truly knowledgeable. People at things like the GOTA, not wasting my time on journalists who, by and large, speak from the orifice upon which I am sitting. So I hope that answers that question. But if it makes people happier for him to be known as Mr. Mountbatten Windsor, that's fine by me. I'm just observing. It is unprecedented for the son of a duke to be a Mr. It's not possible. The son of a duke has to, at the very least, be a lord. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so I'll know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay, thank you so much. Take good care. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and please hype it. Thank you. Bye-bye.